In this video, we'll learn how patches in MARI add flexibility to the way we create our texture maps. Okay, so again, still working with this Assassin project that we created early on in this course. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about the flexibility a multi-tile texture workflow allows us as an artist. So again, you can see this particular character asset has been split up into a number of different, what MARI refers to as patches. So if I come through here and click on a few of these, you can see here that each one of these patches is a different part of our mesh. Now, essentially what this is numerous different texture spaces. So if you think about the traditional kind of workflow when you lay out the UVs for an asset, a lot of times it would center around a single texture space. This multi-tile texture workflow, though, is something that, while it's fairly new, it is something that is gaining traction in both the VFX and film industries very, very quickly. So in looking at this, I'm zoomed in on kind of the lower left-hand patch here. It just happens to be the body mesh. And you can see here that there's some information in the lower left-hand corner. Now, when we created this MARI project, we created it with a resolution of 4K for the only channel that we specified, which was that color channel. Remember when we created that project, we had just this one channel. Now, since then, I've created a couple more channels. But what we're looking at here is the resolution that was specified for the color channel. Now, what that means is that each one of these patches is going to output a separate texture, a separate image with a resolution currently of 4K. Now, this may work great depending on the asset you're looking at. The asset I'm looking at, though, has a number of different patches here that really don't need that kind of resolution. For example, this patch right here. This patch right here contains just these little rivets on the shoulder armor for the character. Giving those things 4K of resolution is a tremendous waste of pixels and really just resources. So what this workflow allows you to do is inside of MARI, you can come in and on a patch-by-patch basis, you can say, well, maybe for this patch, I only need this to be 1K or 512 by 512, something fairly low resolution, where something like this one, maybe the body mesh, maybe we do want this to be 4K because there's more of the mesh, the total mesh that's actually contained on that particular patch. So this multi-tile texture workflow is something that if you're not familiar with it, you may find it beneficial to check out our course titled Multi-Tile Texture Workflows. In that course, we go over both MARI, Mudbox, and ZBrush and how they deal with this approach to multi-tile texturing. So now patches inside of MARI is the equivalent to multi-tile texturing, and you'll notice here that MARI gives, for example, this patch I have selected, a number here in the lower left-hand corner. This number is a UDIM number, and with MARI, the lower left-hand corner is sort of the beginning of the UDIM numbering. So this would be 1001. You can see to the right of that we have 1002. Now, basically, what we can do in MARI, or what MARI supports, is that we can stack 10 texture spaces in the U-axis here. So you can see I'm only utilizing 6 right here before I've moved up to the next row in the V. But we could have up to 10 here. Now, watch what happens. When I come over here and we've got 1001 through 1006, and we come up to this guy and we start with 1011. So the numbering is going to reflect the patch position. So you can see if we kind of come up here to the very, very top, we're going to be looking at patch 1041. So again, MARI supports a tremendous number of patches, more than likely plenty for your project. But at this point, I wanted to come up here and point out to you in the menu bar, we have this patches menu. And there's a lot of options inside this menu that I use quite a bit when it comes to managing my patches. So I want to run through a few of these. The extract selected option here is the very first one. And this is really not going to be a good example because we don't have any textures in this particular project yet. But what this will allow you to do is extract the textures for a selected patch and move those as an image into the image manager. You can see in the image manager right now, I just have the two HDRs that I brought in. But if we were to come in and say, just extract the selected patch, what we'll get is just an image here that's solid gray in color. Because, again, we have filled our channel with gray by default. So let me just come in here and select that image and delete it by hitting the delete key. Now, coming through here, and I'm not going to hit on all these options, but selecting a range that allows you to bring up a dialog that allows you to basically select a range of UDIMs. Again, we'll learn a little bit more about selecting in an upcoming video, but I very rarely use that. Coming down here, now these options here, these quick paste and quick copy, these are things I use a lot. You'll notice here that several of these UV layouts for some of these patches are identical. For example, this patch right here. You'll notice this patch is the shoulder armor on her right shoulder. Well, the armor on her left shoulder has an identical UV layout. So what you can do here is you can actually come in and select a patch and do a quick copy and a quick paste if you want to transfer some of the details maybe that you've painted for one patch to another very, very quickly. Now, another way to do this is to link the patches together. So if we were to come over here and open up the, let's see, what are we looking for? Patches palette right there. You'll see each one of the patches in my project. Let me just go to a UV view. That'll be a little easier to see here. So each one of these patches here in the project are represented in the patches palette. And we could actually come in here and link these two patches together. So if I were to just select them both, just like so, we can come over here and create a link between them. And the sort of the background for the patches turns to a purple color when they're linked. So what this means is whenever we paint on one of these patches, it's actually going to paint on both of them. And that'll work out great for these two patches because they have the exact same UV layout. Now again, that's going to create completely symmetrical details until you break that link. So a lot of times I'll only do that if I specifically want the exact same details on one patch as I have on another. Otherwise, that quick copy and quick paste is good for moving some details over, but not others. All right, let's jump back up here to patches. We have the option to fill a selected patch with a number of different colors here. This is actually something that is pretty useful and I use quite a bit. You can also fill with a mask or a wireframe. So those two options I don't use as much. Now, another thing we could do, let me just come over and maybe select the head patch here. We could come into the patches menu and basically send a UV mask to the image manager or a UV wireframe to the image manager. Again, this is creating an image over here inside the image manager palette. I'll go ahead and just do that for the UV mask. And what you'll see here is we get simply an image here that could be used to create a mask in the shape of the shells on this particular patch. All right, again, I don't need that. I'll just go ahead and delete it. And let me just take a look in the patches menu. We do have some other options here for transforming the textures on a patch. We can flip them, we can rotate them. You can see that here. We can also do some mirroring, left to right, right to left, top to bottom, so on and so forth. There is some linking options here. Again, these are similar to what I just showed you in the patches palette. However, the option that we're really looking at here, and it is something that I would use quite a bit in a situation like this, is the ability to resize a selected patch. Let's come back over here and look at these rivets again. Remember, we don't need 4K resolution for these. So let's come up and change this. Let's come up to resize selected and maybe say, well, I really only want about 512 by 512 resolution for those. So we could do that, resize that. And now for the selected channel, in this case, the color channel, the resolution for this patch is now 512 pixels by 512 pixels, whereas all the other ones are still 4K. Now again, this would have to be changed on a per channel basis. And if we came over to roughness, remember when we created that roughness channel, we specified a resolution of 2K. So all of our patches have that resolution currently assigned. If we wanted to duplicate that resizing of patches, we would need to do that for each channel we desire that change to exist on. All right, great. So in this video, we've learned how working with a multi-tile texture workflow inside of MARI, utilizing its patches, can really give us a lot of flexibility as a texture artist.